Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm only 5'3", so I always have to lower the From what I've witnessed tonight, it's been amazing. I'm truly amazed. I'm truly amazed at the talent, the dedication to the craft. I am amazed by the honesty and truthfulness of what has gone before me tonight. Langston Hughes said, "A poet must hang themselves with their own words." That is the kind of truthfulness that should be elicited from someone who is a poet. Of course, the driving energy of being a poet is to be in love with truth and beauty. If it's not about truth and beauty, then something is lacking. I'm especially honored tonight to read with a poet who hails from my hometown. I've been in Philadelphia for 45 years, graduated from Temple University, but I am always a Pittsburgher. The first 18 years of my life, my vision, my passion, the folks who raised me, was steeped in the ethos of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I will always be a Pittsburgher. This is my mom, my late mom, on the cover of one of my books, and she was my greatest inspiration. We grew up very impoverished. My mother raised 4 of us by herself with the help of extended family. And to this day, I will not eat a syrup sandwich or a mayonnaise sandwich, because sometimes that was all that was in the house to eat. But the people who raised me, the people who only went to the 6th grade or the 10th grade, or perhaps even lower, when they saw me entranced with books, when they saw me always keeping my head in the books, they said, "Boy, you stick with those books." And I told them I would. And I told them that when I came into my own, that I would not forget them, that I would be their voice. So I went through 16 years of education, or I should rather explain it as miseducation, because the education I received was not about who I was. It was not about the history of my people. It was not about the history of African people. The education I received was an education that could only lead to madness. But in 1972, after I had returned from the Vietnam War, I was sitting in a colleague's apartment, and I was bragging about all the books I had read, because I had been a bibliophile since I was 10 years old. And he said to me one day, he said, "Yeah, Lamont, you've read a lot of books, but you know what? You've read the wrong books." And the impact of his words had such an astounding effect on me that I jumped up in his apartment in tears and fled out to the street, weeping, because the truth of what he had said had hit home. But I can tell you very honestly now that from that moment in 1972 to this moment in the 21st century, I've read the right books. And that is why I'm before you tonight. And I want to really give a shout out to Sean Lynch, who I met serving coffee in Barnes & Noble when he was 19 years old, and he let me know that he was a poet. And one day I went back, because I always have coffee there, and he says, I know all about you. He had done his research. He had looked online at all of those things that referred to me and what I had done for the last 30 or 40 years. I've been watching the Ken Burns series. In fact, I'm missing an episode tonight. And as I mentioned, I'm a Vietnam veteran, so I'm very, very much affected by this documentary. And what is the plight of those of us who put ourselves in harm's way for this nation. I'll begin by reading, and I want to congratulate Teddy Harris. Teddy Harris was someone that I introduced to Amiri Baraka, aka Leroy Jones, the beat poet of the Beat Generation. And Teddy and I attended Baraka's house once a month for 10 years straight. And Baraka would always say, if you're in my presence, if you're in my house, you must be one of the advanced. And over time, one would understand that more and more profoundly. Because you have to understand that as soon as they begin to educate you, or miseducate you, you are being lied to. How is it that you can go all the way through school and get a PhD and know nothing of African history, know nothing of Chinese history, know nothing of Mexican history, know nothing of Native American history? How is it that you can be awarded the highest degree and yet be so miseducated? When I told my mother that I wanted to go to college, and like I said, we had no financial means, she said to me, my mother went to the 10th grade, and she said to me, son, don't be no educated fool. And I said, what do you mean by that, Mom? She said, you'll find out. Just don't be one. And I have met a lot of educated fools. Like Curtis Mayfield says, miseducated fools from uneducated schools. So I understand. My mother told me the most important thing was to have mother wit. And what was mother wit? Common sense. So I got my street education in Philadelphia. I got my academic education in Philadelphia. But the wisdom that my mother gave me throughout our time together, our 32 years together, all the things that she told me are with me still and empower me. And to young writers, I say to you, mind the wisdom of your ancestors. Mind the wisdom of your mother, your father, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, your great-great-great-grandparents. Mind that wisdom. Get a DNA test. Find out what your lineage is. So I will begin by reading this poem called Blue Moon, published in Whirlwind. And Sean Lynch deserves a Grammy, an Academy Award for the lifeblood that he has put into creating Whirlwind magazine. And the reason I am considered as a co-founder is because I founded Whirlwind Press. Whirlwind Press is a publication that started in 1987, and Whirlwind magazine is a spin-off of Whirlwind Press. But it was a belief I had, and it was grounded in what Marcus Garvey said. Now I know most of you who have college educations and postgraduate educations probably never even heard of Marcus Garvey, and that was intentional. And Marcus Garvey said, "Look for me in the whirlwind and the power of the storm, where I will bring with me millions of ancestors who died in Africa and the Americas and the island of the sea to aid you in your fight for life, liberty, and freedom." Freedom! And you have to know that these whirlwinds that we've been experiencing over the last several months, they come off the coast of Africa, the west coast of Africa, and they follow the trails of the slave ships. The millions who died, either thrown overboard or jumped overboard, rather than be enslaved in the Americas. A black man, an older black man, said to me one day in the 1970s, he said, because many of the people that were captured and enslaved, many of them were shamans, witch doctors, medicine men, whatever term you want to use. He said, yeah, you don't know what curses they were saying over that land as they picked cotton, picked peanuts. You don't know what curses they laid on that land. I bet you never were taught this in college. I've also been very blessed to have been mentored by many immortals, i.e. James Baldwin, i.e. South African poet Dennis Brutus, i.e. Gwendolyn Brooks, i.e. Amiri Baraka, i.e. Samuel Allen. I sometimes say to people, if you want to be famous, you got to hang out with the famous, because fame rubs off. And while I say that in tongue-in-cheek, I also say it very seriously. You want to be a serious poet? Then hang out with someone who is already further down the road from you. Even if you're just a fly on the wall. Blue Moon. Jimmy Baldwin, wounded in the crossfires of history. Malcolm and Martin shot dead because of what they said. I want to hear the blues played by the moon. I want the sun to sing gospel and the sky to turn red. I want to call back the dead. I'm writing chicken bone history on an empire's skull, brewing bat-wing soup with a hog maul. I'm dressed in rags and got bloodshot eyes, headed to the crossroads to curse those I despise. Amir Baraka said, to relate to this young sister from Pittsburgh, and I'm getting ready to go home to Pittsburgh on August 14th to celebrate my 50th high school reunion. Whoa. And I am so looking forward to it. Peabody High School, class of '67. This was my late mother. A very wise woman. You might notice she has a mole on her third eye. My mama could look at you and read you in 30 seconds. Crowns and halos. And this is important as we go through this struggle with monuments and what happened in Charlottesville. It's very important that resistance be maintained. Crowns and halos. 2. For our journey in this American land, some of us deserve crowns of royal gold. For our marching, for our sign waving, for our shouting and chants, for our brick throwing, Molotov cocktail hurling, for our blockades and barriers, some of us deserve crowns of gold. For the assassinations of our leaders, for the cripplings, for the woundings, for the beatdowns. Some of us have earned glittering crowns, diamond studded, for our journey in the world, for everything taken by force, for everything stolen. Our names, our culture, our dreams. For it all. Some of us have earned halos for our resistance, for our endurance, for our faith, our fire, our desire for freedom. We have earned, are earning, are deserving of crowns and halos. Let us wear them into battle. Remember the fallen, the visionaries and warriors who returned in the pure black of night, whisper constitutions in our ears and hearts. For the many thousands gone, who roiled the sea with rage, looked for dreamers in love with the page. Amiri Baraka said, if you go from the west coast of Africa to the eastern United States, on the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean is a railroad of human bones. For those who were thrown off the ocean, thrown over the side of the ships as they were brought here in the Middle Passage, for those who jumped off the side of ships, encumbered with chains because they refused to be enslaved. On the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean is a railroad of human bones. I never saw an ocean until I was 12 years old. My sister, my late sister, and her husband took me to Atlantic City. And when we walked out on the boardwalk, me coming from 400 miles away, in Pittsburgh, we're 1,000 feet above sea level. We're in the mountains. And when I walked out on that boardwalk and saw all this water, they had to tell me to close my mouth. And then some years later, I'm sitting on the beaches of Atlantic City, and don't forget, Atlantic City had that problem where blacks were only allowed on a certain section of the beach called Chicken Bone Beach. And if you went off Chicken Bone Beach, then you were chased back by racists who would beat you or do other things to you. And so I'm sitting there on Atlantic City's beach and alone, and something comes out of the water, some force comes out of the water so powerful that it strikes me in my chest and knocks me back. And I'm like, what the fuck was that? Okay? It was the ancestors. It was the ancestors putting something deep in my heart, deep in my spirit. And so I live that out. So I'll just read to you a few more and then I'll leave. And again, I'm amazed. I am amazed by all who spoke before me. I'm amazed at this audience. I'm amazed at the energy that Sean Lynch puts into this. I'm amazed at all the people who support Sean Lynch, Alexa, and all the other people. This is amazing. This is amazing. I'm 68 years old. I have no plans to go anywhere for the next 20 years because I have 2 grandchildren that I want to see to live to be their 20s. And I will do whatever's possible to be here on Earth to witness that. Seismograph. To measure the barometer of these days, poet, take up the pen. Become the seismograph of these quaking volcanic times. Let the falling sky find you at work, scrawling SOS messages to the ones who will find you in the ruins.